fourth graders, I am here at my desk ready to start lesson 3 of our expedition of the exploration and eventual colonization of North America. We left off where the Europeans had begun colonizing rather than just exploring the continent, and there weren't enough people to do the heavy labor, so landowners and colonists were beginning to trade for and eventually buy and sell slaves to do this work and grow the colonies. But there's a but. Before I get to the colonization, I think I better talk a little bit about why. Why did the Europeans sail across the North Atlantic Ocean into the unknown? They were perfectly fine in Europe. They weren't overrun. It's a big place. And truthfully, they didn't really even know that the continent of North America existed. So what led the Europeans to get on ships and sail across the ocean into the unknown? A few things. First, between 1000 and 1650, big religious changes happened in Europe. The Catholic Church and the Protestant Church were the two big religions, the main religions in Europe. And as the Protestants wanted to reform the church, the Catholic Church wanted it to change in a different way. They actually wanted to go back to more of an old school way of doing things. And this friction between the old ways and the new ways led to major changes in art and literature and the way everyone thought about life, including this new notion that humans had the ability to change and control their world. Wow. This period of time became known as the Renaissance, which is French for rebirth. At the time, a shift in politics also happened with the unification or bringing together of small states into larger states with a more centralized political power, one political power. Also, there was this emergence or coming into being of new technology in shipbuilding and navigation, making it the perfect time for exploration. But, there's another but. The biggest reason behind the big push to explore the New World was trade. Now, Marco Polo, a Venetian explorer and also a really fun pool game, had already sailed across the Mediterranean Sea in the other direction, bringing exotic products and wealth to Europe from China and the Middle East, which made others think, hey, I want to explore, I want to become rich and famous too. Let me try to show you. Hold on. Hold on. Maybe I can show you. Oh, I need my glasses for this. What I'm talking about. So, hopefully you can see where we have France and Italy, and there is the Mediterranean Sea. He sailed crossing the Middle East, and then eventually into China. Hope that helps you a little bit, gives you, a visual. So where was I? Let's see. Yes, Columbus. Christopher Columbus started across the North Atlantic Ocean beginning in 1492 and continued to do so for the next 12 years. His trips were sponsored, meaning paid for. Here, better. His trips were sponsored by Spain, meaning they were paid for by Spain. Christopher Columbus was looking for a new route or shortcut to India and China. Now, at the same time, other explorers like John Cabot, sponsored by England, were heading out too. John Cabot found Newfoundland, which became Canada, and another explorer, Pedro Alvarez Cabral, reached Brazil and claimed it for Portugal. And also, good old Amerigo Vespucci, around that time, a little bit later, decided that Christopher Columbus had actually reached 2 new continents. And cartographers or map makers during the time used a Latinized version of his name, America, when adding the two continents to the new maps, labeling them North and South America. So, because Spain sponsored Columbus, they were the first European power to settle and colonize the largest areas from North America and the Caribbean to the southern tip of South America. But they were soon followed by the French and English, or British. Settlers crossed the Atlantic for different reasons, and their governments took different approaches to their colonizing efforts. During the 1600s, a great number of French traders, missionaries, and soldiers traversed or crossed the wilderness from eastern Canada to Louisiana, or what they named Louisiana. They ventured through the whole Great Lakes region and the Mississippi Valley, claiming the land for the King of France. Many permanent settlements were founded during this time, including Detroit, St. Louis, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. Under this French rule, all the settlements remained frontier outposts. But the French focused on setting up forts and trading posts and building the strong fur trade with the indigenous people, or the people who were there first, the Native Americans and Canadians, or First Nation. So while the French widely explored much of North America, they did not focus on settling or colonizing. The population of New France never grew to the extent that the English colonies grew. So this is kind of explaining the differences. These differences in the colonizing efforts created both advantages and disadvantages that profoundly affected the way things looked in the New World. France and Spain, for instance, were governed by kings whose rule was absolute. Their colonists were sent to America as servants of the crown. The English, on the other hand, enjoyed a little bit more freedom. They were allowed to govern themselves as long as they followed English law and pledged allegiance or loyalty to the king. In addition, they were a little bit more down with immigration from other countries as well, kind of growing their colonies even faster. In the beginning, 75% of the people coming to North America to look for a new life were indentured servants, meaning indentured means they signed a contract with the people that they served. Most of the indentured servants were teenagers from England who were from very, very poor families, and their families signed a contract that gave them a free trip to the new land in exchange for giving their service until they became adults. So what would happen is they would sail to the new land, they would be given a place to live, food, clothing, and they'd be taught a trade such as taking care of a household, building, farming, those types of things. But in exchange, they worked for no money until they were adults. The landowners were in desperate need of laborers, so it was in their benefit to pay for these people to come to the New World in exchange for the person working for them for several years. And this brings us back to the beginning, right? The English colonies are growing fast, and there are not enough laborers or people to do the heavy lifting in the building. But that is for the next lesson. Before I go, though, I want to try to show you a little bit more about what the North American continent looked like. Oh, hopefully it's still there. Hold on 1 second. I'll pause you. Okay, here you have a map of what the North American continent looked like back in the 1600s. As you can see, even though the French had explored a good portion of North America, they didn't really colonize it, and in the end, the British were the major colonizers, and the people who eventually made it their own. But I'll talk about that next time. All right. Mwah! Wish you well.